My debut historical mystery, The Cloak and Dagger Club, is coming out on July 14th with an imprint of Penguin Random House, and in today's video, I'm going to be answering my subscribers' questions about it. Hello, my name is Jackie, and I wrote a 1930s Agatha Christie inspired historical mystery about a group of crime writers when an actual murder takes place in their midst. I asked on my channel what questions you have about the Cloak and Dagger Club, my debut novel, and today I'm going to be answering all of them. We got 12 questions, and if at the end of this you have additional things that you're wondering about, do let me know in the comments section. There are also timestamps in the description that you can use to hop around from question to question. You can also find the links to add my book on Goodreads or pre-order it down there as well. Let's get started. I think the place where it makes the most sense to start is with the question, how did you get the idea for the book? I've found that history is a really great source of inspiration for me because the truth is kind of stranger than fiction, as they say, and the idea for this book originally came to me when I learned about the Detection Club. This is a group that was founded in 1930 in London, but it still exists today, and it is a crime writers organization. The original members back in the 30s included people like Agatha Christie, Dorothy L. Sayers, G.K. Chesterton, Anthony Berkeley. This time period was known as the Golden Age of crime fiction or the Golden Age of mysteries because mystery novels in this period were at the peak of their popularity and so many famous authors were writing, like Christie and others. I just thought to myself, wouldn't it be so fun if there was a book where there was a club like this with mystery writers and an actual real-life murder took place? It could be so fun and delightfully meta. And I couldn't find a book like that that existed, so it really planted that seed in my mind. Agatha Christie is one of my all-time favorite writers, and one thing that I didn't learn until much later was that actually at one point she wrote in her notebook an idea to write a mystery set at the Detection Club, and she wrote down the names of herself and several of her famous friends from the club, indicating that potentially she would have fictionalized them in the book. I believe that she actually wrote down the title 13 at Dinner in her notebook for this, and that was later, I believe, the UK title for her book, Lord Edgware Dies. So while she never wrote that Detection Club story, I kind of like the idea that her and I thought of the same idea. Hopefully I've made her proud with this story. Question 2, what was the first book that ever got you into this specific genre? So why did I become a historical mystery writer? I used to think that I was going to write thrillers. When I was a teenager, I thought that I was going to write young adult thrillers because that's what I read at the time. And then when I was a young adult, like in my early 20s, I thought that I was going to write adult thrillers. And I tried many times to write thrillers for young adults or adults, and I never finished one. Ultimately, the reason that I decided that I was going to become a historical mystery writer, and I did ultimately end up finishing a project, was after I read the Veronica Speedwell mysteries by Deanna Rayburn. I read those, I think, in like 2020 or 2021. The first book is called A Curious Beginning. This is a series set in Victorian-era London in the 1880s. The main character actually studies butterflies, but she ends up solving mysteries with the help of this natural historian who also becomes her love interest. And the main character, she's very clever. She's somebody who breaks convention and goes after what she wants. I read this, I loved it so much. I loved the romantic element of it. Veronica, the main character, and Stoker, her love interest. I love them together. I mean, Stoker is amazing fictional man. Like, I love him so much. And at the time that I read this, I didn't realize that historical mystery was even a thing. I'd heard one person on BookTube talk about this book. I do see more people on BookTube discovering them now, but I read this book and I thought to myself, holy crap, I love this. I want to read more books like this. And so I started doing research and I discovered just how many historical mysteries were out there. I've always liked mysteries and I'm very interested in history. I got interested in it back in elementary school because I used to read the Dear America books, the Royal Diary books. I used to read Carolyn Myers' books about the Tudors. So history has always appealed to me, and to be able to combine history, mystery, and maybe a little bit of romance, it just ticks all of the boxes for me, and the Veronica Speedwell books were what got me into historical mystery in the first place. And now I have the same publisher as Deanna Rayburn. Berkley. I love Berkley. They have so many good historical mysteries. So it all worked out, but the Veronica Speedwell books were my historical mystery gateway drug, so to speak. Question 3 goes, hello. Hello to you too. Will this book lean more on cozy, i.e. the adventure and interactions of the characters are the main focus, or mystery, where we have to actively look for clues and try to solve the mystery? So, based on how you define it, I think it is more mystery. I would say the book is cozy in the way Agatha Christie is cozy, not cozy like as in the modern publishing genre cozy, because it's not particularly violent. There's no on-page sex. There is like cursing, but it's 1930s appropriate cursing, like there's no F-bombs or anything like that. I would say, you know, you're defining mystery as we have to actively look for clues and try to solve the mystery. This book has a lot of clues, and I would say it is a fair play mystery. I give you the information you need to know to figure out who it was that committed the crime, if you're the type of reader who likes to try to play along and try to figure out who did it. Now, I think people read mysteries differently. I think there are some people who they pick up the mystery and they're just having fun. They're not really trying to solve it. They're not trying to figure out all the clues. They're just here to have fun and see what happens at the end. But I know there are also a lot of mystery readers who do like to think very deeply about what's going on. They like to try to see if they can guess who did it before the big reveal. And it was important to me to give you the clues and the information you needed, because I think when you're reading a mystery and the reveal hinges upon information that you haven't shared with the reader, that's just not playing fair. That's not good form. So if you're somebody who does like to keep track of those things, you're gonna have the information that you need to potentially solve the mystery. I also think that if you want to reread the book after you already read it once, when you reread it, possessing the knowledge of who did it, I think you're gonna pick up on some things that maybe you didn't pick up on in the first read, and they're gonna take on a new significance on a reread. So I hope that answers your question. I would define the book as a fair play mystery, and I would say it's cozy in the way Christie is cozy, not in terms of the modern day publishing genre. Also, you say here, the adventure and interactions of the characters are the main focus. I mean, the mystery is very important. I do hope that you'll like the characters and their interactions. There is, you know, a romantic subplot, but if you're looking for a mystery that you can try to solve, definitely you'll have that. The next two questions go together. First, what was your favorite phase of writing this specific book? What was my favorite phase? I mean, I don't know if I can say there was one specific part of writing it that was my favorite. I do really love the ending of the book. I've said before that I think endings are one of my strong suits as an author. I think that it's always, I mean, not to toot my own horn, but I always think that my endings are pretty satisfying, and I make an effort to make sure that there aren't loose threads. This is not writing it specifically, but I think the part that was the most satisfying for me was rereading the book again after I had worked on edits, after my beta readers, after working with my agent, after working with my editor, because I was rereading it and I was seeing all of the changes that I'd made along the way, and I just felt like, wow, I did a really good job on this. I'm reading it now, it feels like a real book, and I could see all the little improvements that I made from draft 1 to draft number 8. So that wasn't part of the actual physical writing, but in terms of the process of creating this book, that was the most satisfying, biggest pinch me moment for me. I don't think there's anything that I would change about the book at this point. I am so happy with it. I love it so much, and I hope that when you read it, you will love it too. On the other side of the coin, somebody asked, what would you say was the hardest phase/aspect for you of writing this book? My first instinct is, honestly, I think the hardest part was just getting started in the beginning. So the Cloak and Dagger Club is the second manuscript that I've ever finished, ever seen through to completion. And it's the second book that I tried to get a literary agent with. If you've been subscribed to me for a while, you know that before I wrote the Cloak and Dagger Club, I wrote a Regency era mystery called Project Mayfair. And when I tried to get a literary agent with that, I did not get one. So when I first started writing the Cloak and Dagger Club, I was feeling a bit discouraged because I do think in my heart I was expecting to get an agent the first time. And it was a little hard to start something new when I had to deal with that uncertainty and feeling of discouragement, because I do think in my heart I had been very emotionally attached to my Regency mystery. I'd rested all my hopes and dreams on it, and so there was that element of self-doubt, of wondering, am I good enough? Can I write another book? Is this book gonna fail, quote unquote, like the first one did? And so that was a really hard thing for me to work past. I believe that I started writing the Cloak and Dagger Club draft 1 in the fall of, would it have been 2023? I think it was 2023, when I was still querying the first book. And honestly, I started it, I was like, I have no idea if this draft is even any good. I have no idea what I'm doing. And I took a break from it for quite a few months before I got back into it because I just couldn't focus. I didn't know if it was any good. I hated every word that I wrote. But then a few months later, when I had some more emotional distance from my Regency mystery, I picked myself back up. I got back into the draft, and I ended up really finding my way. And ultimately, you know, I created something that I'm really proud of. I was able to get an agent. I was able to get a book deal with a publisher that I love. So yeah, I think the hardest part was just being able to find the motivation to start it, to put myself out there again, take a chance on another manuscript. I do think that was probably the hardest part for me. Next question, what are some mystery books I should read before reading your book, as in getting a feel for the genre? So you've never read a mystery before, but you're gonna read mine. Like, that's so sweet, and that makes me feel so good. Honestly, okay, if you want to do some pre-reading before reading this, I don't know if you have to, but I actually think what would be a good thing to do is to read some of these classic Golden Age mysteries. Read some Agatha Christie, read some Dorothy L. Sayers. Agatha Christie, like I said, is one of my favorite authors, and so she is a major source of inspiration for this. There are actually many instances throughout the book where I include very subtle Agatha Christie references, like I give characters names that are references to Agatha Christie books. Some of them honestly don't even mean anything. Like if there's a throwaway line where I have to mention a character who is literally just going to be mentioned in that one line and never again, I would go to the Agatha Christie wiki and pluck a first and last name from the Agatha Christie wiki. So in those instances, they didn't really mean much. They were just kind of like a, if you know, you know sort of thing. Since this book is set during the Golden Age of Mysteries, and it does have some sort of meta commentary on mysteries themselves, I think it could be helpful to read some of the authors who were popular during that period. I've read a lot of Agatha Christie. I've been reading the Lord Peter Wimsey series by Dorothy L. Sayers. You could also read G.K. Chesterton, who was the first president of the Detection Club. I actually haven't really read that much from Chesterton other than maybe a short story or two. But I think people like that, they might be good authors to read just to get sort of understand the time and place in history and in the history of the mystery genre that this book is taking place. Another reason that I think it would probably be good to read some classic mysteries before you read this is because each member of the Cloak and Dagger Club obviously is an author, and we learn in the book, you know, what their books are about. We get book within a book excerpts where you're reading chapters from the books that my club members wrote. And each character kind of represents a different type of mystery. Like, for instance, one of the characters is an ex-Scotland Yard detective who writes a series about a Scotland Yard detective. So he kind of references the police procedural, the hard-boiled mystery. There is another character who writes a series set in a very cozy village, and the main character is a clergyman. So that's kind of a reference to the Father Brown stories by Chesterton, and also series like Miss Marple by Christie that take place, you know, in these very cute English villages where, for some reason, people die all the time, you know? And if you don't have a lot of time, but you want to read something before reading my book, I would highly suggest these short story collections by Martin Edwards. They're from British Library Crime Classics. Martin Edwards is the current Detection Club president in 2025, and so these are themed story collections he gathered together featuring stories from the Golden Age. So there will be authors in here like Arthur Conan Doyle, Agatha Christie, Dorothy L. Sayers, but also people who were famous back then but aren't as well remembered now. So pick up one of these collections and you'll get a nice sampling of classic mystery short stories, and then you can get a feel for what they were like, who were the people who were writing, what were they writing about. And while not a mystery book, Martin Edwards also wrote this book, The Golden Age of Murder, The Mystery of the Writers Who Invented the Modern Detective Story. And this is a nonfiction book about the Detection Club, its founding, the people who were in it. It is nonfiction, but it is really easy to read. I found it so interesting. And actually, there are pages in here that I dog-eared, because I read this after I'd already plotted out the Cloak and Dagger Club, after I'd already written a few drafts of it, and there were some anecdotes in here that sparked ideas for me, so I dog-eared the pages so that later I could go back to them because they sparked ideas in me. So this is also a really great read. Not a mystery proper, but it'll give you some background about the Detection Club, which was my inspiration. Oh, this next question is one that I love so much. Do you see yourself in any of the characters? Yes, I do. So one thing that you need to know about me is that I am a very anxious person. It may not seem this way from my YouTube channel, but in real life, I am very shy. I think it's easier for me to express myself on camera, whereas in real life, I get much more socially anxious about it. And though I love the historical mysteries with these very plucky, clever heroines who charge bravely into danger, I love those characters, and the character in my Regency mystery, she was much more like that. I was thinking to myself, you know, we don't read that many books where the main character is an anxious girly, right? An anxious girl who's so much more comfortable reading and writing than she is making friends or doing things like that in real life. And so Lucy, my protagonist, that's more so her personality. She's somebody who's very shy, very anxious, someone who's very intelligent, you know, she's this successful writer, but she has a hard time in social situations or using her voice in real life like she does on the page. That's based off what I'm like and what I think a lot of book lovers are like. I think a lot of us are more introverted, so I wanted to make her have those aspects of my personality, to have a different sort of protagonist, one who's more like me and other people like me. So I identify with her a lot in those aspects. I'm an anxious girly who wrote about an anxious girly for all the anxious girlies out there. Definitely identify with her in some ways. I also think I identify a little bit with Jonathan, one of the other characters, because Jonathan's story is that actually he hasn't published a novel yet. He is an aspiring author who currently works as a secretary for another one of the main characters. His dream is to be a novelist, and a defining part of his personality is that he's kind of like a little bit of like a mystery nerd. Like, he loves mystery novels. It has like an encyclopedic knowledge of them, and it's just very enthusiastic. So I guess I kind of identify with him a little bit in that way because, you know, I'm a book lover, somebody who just loves talking about books, and that's always been kind of part of my personality. I'm somebody who, when I'm interested in something, it gets sometimes borderline obsessive, and like I want to talk to other people about my interests. So I suppose he and I have that in common also. Somebody also asked, who's your favorite character in the Cloak and Dagger Club? I'm not going to give you a straight answer to this because I can't really pick one person who's my favorite. Obviously, I love every character in some way because I wouldn't write them if I didn't enjoy writing about them. But I'm gonna kind of answer your question. Obviously, I love Lucy. Like I said, I identify with her a lot of ways, but I don't want to say that she's my favorite because I feel like out of all the characters, she's the one who's the most similar to me, the most familiar. I also think it would be kind of narcissistic to say she's my favorite when she has certain aspects of my personality be a little bit narcissistic. I do love Frank a lot. He is her love interest and the deuteragonist of the story. Deuteragonist is not a word that I get to use a lot. The secondary protagonist, like Lucy is the main character and he is the second most important character. What I love about him is he's kind of more sarcastic and a little bit of a smartass, which I enjoy about him. I like writing his lines and have fun with it. I think he's funny, which again might be a little narcissistic because I write all of his lines. But another reason that I really love him a lot is because I understand him, if that makes sense. He, as a character, has really been shaped by his childhood and the things that he went through in his formative years. They still have impacted him and how he views himself deeply. So I think psychologically, I really understand him. Again, that might sound weird to some people because he's a fictional man. He's not real, but I feel like I get him. I get why he is the way that he is and why he became this person. So that makes me connect with him a lot because I feel like I understand him as if he were real. Now, another thing, though, is that I think the characters that are the most fun to write are the ones that are the most different from you, the author, because it lets you do things that are so atypical from your normal self, right? So I do really like writing characters who are particularly witty or clever because I'm the type of person where I think of the clever comeback like 3 hours after the argument happened, you know? So it is kind of fun to be able to write this character who like always has the perfect joke or the perfect smart-ass comment. And it is also really fun to write characters who are assholes because in my life, I try to be a nice person, you know? I never intentionally am mean to people. So sometimes writing somebody who is a total jerk is really fun because they just say all this horrible shit and act out in ways that you yourself would never act out. It really lets you put yourself into the head of a person who is so unlike yourself. So I also had a lot of fun writing Horace, and Horace is the president of the Cloak and Dagger Club, and not a spoiler because it tells you on the jacket copy for the book, he's the one who gets killed in the book. He fits that classic like asshole murder victim trope. He gets murdered and every character in the book has a potential reason to have murdered him because he is such an asshole to everybody. Everybody secretly hated him, you know? And he was fun to write because he's such a jerk and says so many things that are just completely out of pocket. You know, he has all of these antics. That was really fun for me because I would never in my real life act the way that he acts. And I was able to create a character who is so unlike myself. My favorite line of Horace's in the book is at one point where he's berating this staff member for making his drink wrong, and he says, "I want you to bring me a drink that's not as bitter as your prospects next time." Which, I don't know, I just love that line. I feel like it's such a mean-spirited singer. That's my favorite Horace quote. So yeah, not a straight answer to your question. I don't have one favorite. I love everybody for different reasons, even the ones who are mean. My mom's favorite character is Jonathan, if you care to know. That's her favorite, so for what that's worth. Also, in December, I am supposed to start working with a character artist who is going to draw all of the members of the Cloak and Dagger Club. So when I have that finished art, my plan is to make a video where I tell you a little bit about every single character in the book. So if you want to see that video, make sure to hit subscribe and turn on the bell to get notified when I post. You can also let me know in the comment section of this video, what are some things that you would like to know about my characters? What should I share about them in that video that will help you get to know them better and be more excited for the book? Let me know. I did get a couple questions here that weren't about the book proper, but were more so about what's going on with me in the lead up to the book. So first, somebody said, "Hi, Jackie." Hi to you, whoever you are. "Will you hire a publicist to help promote your book / arrange a launch or tour? Or is your publisher handling all promotion for it?" Okay, I'm gonna try to answer this as best as I can because I have not had a marketing and publicity meeting with my publisher yet, so I'm not entirely sure what we're going to be doing for marketing and publicity. I'm hoping that early on in the new year is when that meeting will take place, and then I will know a little bit more what we're planning. Currently, I do not plan to get an independent publicist for 2 reasons. One, hiring your own publicist is extremely expensive, and I don't know if I can afford to do that, to be honest with you. The second thing is I've also heard from authors who have hired their own publicist, I've heard very mixed things about how effective it was. Some people said that they found it invaluable. The independent publicist helped them so much and got them so many things that their publisher couldn't or wouldn't do, which is great. I've also heard some people say that they think hiring the independent publicist really didn't move the needle in any meaningful way. So since I've heard so many mixed things, I don't think I'm willing to pay that much money for something that may not make a difference in ultimate sales. Now, in terms of what we're gonna do to promote the book, I don't know because I haven't had that meeting with my publisher yet. You do specifically mention arrange a launch or tour, meaning a book tour, and I will touch on that for a second. So a book tour is where an author goes to different bookstores all over the country to have signings and talks. And honestly, most debut authors do not get a book tour because the publisher doesn't want to pay for that when statistically, book tours actually don't sell that many books. They will do book tours if it's an author who's extremely successful because they're confident that there would be a high turnout for the book tour since that person is already well known. Like if Stephen King called his publisher tomorrow and said he wanted to do a book tour, they would do it for him because he's Stephen King. Like people are gonna come out to any event that he does. So my understanding is the publisher is probably not planning to send me on a book tour. It's not typical for debut authors to get that. They do highly encourage you in the publishing industry to have a book launch. for the day of your release or around your release. And I am trying to arrange that myself with a bookstore that is in the general area where I live. I do not have that confirmed yet, but it is my intention as of this moment to have a launch party on July 14th when my book comes out. So people who live in North Florida, just keep July 14th open, because there might be an event where you can come and celebrate the release of Cloak and Dagger and, you know, meet me, get your book signed, all of that. Editing version of Jackie also cutting in here to say that if you do want to see me do an event near you, I can't guarantee that I'll do a book tour, but make sure that you've pre-ordered my book. Pre-orders help my publisher know that people are excited. Follow at Berkeley Pub on Instagram, and when they do post about my book, comment to say how excited you are and that you want to see me on tour. And if anybody out there knows a local bookseller, talk to them, tell them that you're excited about this book, give them the ISBN number, and say, hey, I think you should invite her to do an event. Those things, they would all really help me and help drum up excitement to potentially maybe get some more appearances. One thing I am also going to focus on in the new year is seeing if there are other bookstores that would be willing to do an event with me. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, so I am planning to see if a bookstore in Pennsylvania, like near where I used to live and where I still have some ties, would be willing to do an event with me. And I am going to ask my publisher if there are other bookstores they have connections with that they think would potentially want to host me. So we'll see. It's not going to be a full nationwide book tour. Also, I have a day job, right? So that's another thing. Like I can't take off to travel the country all summer long, you know? Just realistically, I can't do that. But in a perfect world, I would like to do 3 or 4 events in different states. I think that would be fun and is also more realistic. So subscribe. I'll share more about what we're going to do to market the book when I have that information. Also, make sure that you're subscribed to me here and that you're following me on Instagram, link in the description, because I have lots of ideas for videos and social media posts to share more about the book as we get closer to release. Also, you know, maybe some giveaways if you want to win a copy, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to do a pre-order campaign. So if you pre-order the book, keep your receipt, because later on, having that receipt as proof of pre-ordering might get you something special, so put a pin in that. Okay, this next question I'm going to touch on really quickly. Are you and your agent currently receiving offers on film and TV rights? The short answer is no. No, I am not. I would really like to have that happen. I would love to see my book be adapted. In a perfect world, I would love to have like a masterpiece PBS series. I think that would be so cute and so fun. I love masterpiece mystery. But currently, I do not have a film agent, and you need to have a film and TV agent before you can start pitching studios, trying to get them to buy the rights to adapt your work. And currently, I don't have one. It is my understanding that historical is a hard sell right now, but I am keeping hope alive. This is something that I would really like to do. And hey, if there are any film and TV agents out there who are interested in a 1930s mystery inspired by the golden age of crime fiction with a second chance romance subplot, contact me and my agent, abby@larkwords.com. I'm looking for one, you guys. I'm so open. Popping back in here later in the afternoon because I realized I accidentally skipped over one question. And yes, I am sitting on the floor because my phone is at very low battery and it needs to charge. But I wanted to film this before I forgot. This question that I accidentally skipped over was, how do you choose the culprit and how does it affect your writing process? So this is a good question. The best way that I can describe it is choosing the culprit is kind of like playing a mix and match game in my head, because this is how my brain works. In my head, I have many ideas for stories. I have ideas for certain murder methods that would be interesting. certain twists that I think would be surprising, certain motives that I think would be compelling, techniques that I want to use. So when I'm plotting a story, I think about all of those ideas that I have in my head and what would go together, what would make sense for this particular story that I'm trying to tell. And you know, when you're figuring out who your villain is and how they're going to commit the crime, you have to think about what type of person they are and what would make the most sense for them to plan. Like, if, I'm just making something up, if your murderer is an unassuming looking old lady, she's probably not going to stab somebody, right? But she might be able to poison the cookies that she baked for them or something like that. So I have all of these different ideas, these different pieces, and I put them together based on what I think makes sense. I kind of do that with like the subplots and the characters too. Like the reason that the Cloak and Dagger Club has a second chance romance is because originally I intended for the book to be a standalone, and I thought characters who already had a history would make more sense than characters who just met for the first time. Like it would be easier to establish their connection. And in terms of how it impacts my writing process, I mean, it impacts my writing process a great deal. Obviously, when you're writing a mystery, you want to make sure that you're planting clues that the reader can pick up on, right? And I think it's important to get in your mind the villain's story straight. What did they do? How did they pull this off? What is going to be the alibi they create for themselves if they have an alibi? You know, what are they going to lie about to get away with it? But you have to know in your head what really happened because you don't want to accidentally contradict yourself with the timeline or anything. So I think it is important to have that timeline straight and know what really happened. And it also impacts my writing process because when I'm writing the book, I sort of keep a running list of clues that I've dropped because I want to make sure that there's enough that the reader has a chance to guess who did it. So it impacts my writing process in a great deal. I think it would be very difficult to plot and write a mystery if you didn't know who did it. But there are authors who they do start writing the book with no idea who did it, and they figure it out along the way. So there are people who do that, but I don't think that could be me. I think I like knowing so that I know what seeds I need to sow in certain places. But in my first manuscript, the one that I didn't get an agent with, I did actually change my mind about who the murderer was going to be while writing draft one. So there is always that possibility that later a better idea will organically come along during the writing process, you know? Hopefully that answers that question. I'm sorry I accidentally skipped over it on my list earlier. I'm sorry. Back to past me. And finally, the last question that I received. Your second book is a sequel. Would you be open to continuing the series after that? Yes, I would be open. Now, the good thing is, the Cloak and Dagger Club could work as a standalone. So if you read book one and nothing further, you will be totally satisfied. There will not be dangling threads that are gonna bother you. But there is gonna be a book two, and I do think that there is potential to continue the series after that. You know, we have to see what happens, what the response is to books one and two. We know there are going to be at minimum 2 books, and if the publisher wants more after that, I have ideas, okay? I have ideas. If they came to me tomorrow and asked for more Cloak and Dagger Club books, I could easily have 3 ideas to pitch them. Not that they are going to come to me tomorrow because the book still isn't out till July, but I do have a lot of ideas for how the series could continue, how we could keep the characters going for more books. Another thing, though, is I have ideas for a lot of other books, too. There is the potential to bring back my Regency mystery in some form. So no matter what happens, I have a lot of ideas, and I'm hopeful that I will get to write many, many more books and share them with you. So those are all of your questions about my debut novel, The Cloak and Dagger Club. Remember that you can go to the description to add the book to your Goodreads TBR or pre-order it. It is available in hardcover, as an ebook, and as an audiobook. Hopefully in the coming months I will be able to share who's narrating the audiobook once we have those discussions. That's going to be very exciting. If you liked this video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up and let me know any other questions you have in the comment section down below. If you want to watch another one of my videos, check out this one where I share my query letter for the Cloak and Dagger Club that ended up getting me my literary agent and book deal. Thank you so much for being here today, you guys, and sending in these questions. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Goodbye!